Farm workers will soon be treated more like other hourly workers in the state as Governor Brown signs a new overtime bill into law.
So many more families are falling into poverty and having to make decisions. Do we pay the rent? Do we pay for medical bills? What kind of food can we buy?
A South Bay city looks at how to ensure residents are getting enough to eat.
Insurance companies are covering less and less and putting more of the burden on patients.
And after public outcry, the makers of EpiPen are offering help to those who can't afford the life-saving shots. But they're not the only company whose drugs are out of reach for many patients. KPBS Evening Edition starts now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. California farm workers will get overtime pay if they're on the job longer than 8 hours a day or 40 hours a week. The bill was signed into law today by Governor Jerry Brown. The law is the first in the nation to end an 80-year-old practice of treating agriculture workers differently than other hourly workers. The new overtime standards will be phased in over 4 years, starting in 2019. Currently, overtime for farm workers kicks in after 10 hours a day or 60 hours a week. Leaders from around Chula Vista are coming together to figure out how to tackle the problem of too many people having too little to eat. KPBS reporter Steve Walsh was at today's South Bay Hunger Forum and brings us the story.
We're out here in front of the Chula Vista Library. We're inside. They're talking about the problem of food insecurity.
It's a problem that hits everyone, according to Assemblywoman Shirley Weber, who authored a bill to help college students who are going hungry on campus.
The hungry is really almost, it has no definition. You know, you walk around, at least we found at college campuses, students who are full-time students who may have a place to stay but don't have food.
In the South Bay area, more than a third of households earn less than 200% of the federal poverty level. The high cost of living is forcing some tough choices.
It's huge, and it's getting bigger. It relates to the high cost of living in San Diego. So many more families are falling into poverty and having to make decisions. Do we pay the rent? Do we pay for medical bills? What kind of food can we buy?
So September is Hunger Action Month. This is actually going to be the first of 3 forums looking at food insecurity in the whole South Bay area. Reporting from the Chula Vista Library, Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Environmental advocates say California isn't doing enough to protect residents who have too much arsenic in their public drinking water supplies. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson has details.
The Environmental Integrity Project says more than 55,000 California residents get public water that's tainted with unsafe levels of arsenic. The chemical is a carcinogen that's been linked to cancer, developmental difficulties, cardiovascular disease, and even diabetes. Eric Schaefer is the project's executive director. He says the potential for damage accumulates over time.
The longer you're exposed, the more likely you are to suffer serious health effects. And as is done now with private well users, really you ought to take steps to protect your family and try to avoid the water until it's clean again.
Schaefer says California needs to stop suggesting that water is safe if arsenic levels are too high. The Warner Unified School District is the only public system with high arsenic levels in San Diego County. The district serves 250 customers. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
A fourth San Diego neighborhood has been sprayed with pesticide to kill mosquitoes that can carry the Zika virus. Health officials found mosquitoes near the home of someone infected with the virus in Grant Hill. The resident contracted Zika while traveling. So far, officials have not reported any cases of infected mosquitoes in California. Some residents, though, are concerned about the effects of pesticide and are scheduled to gather at 6:30 tomorrow night at Big Kitchen in South Park to discuss the issue. A San Diego man is facing 8 years in prison for lying to federal agents about his brother's connection to the terror group ISIS. Markello McCain admitted in court today he knew of his brother's travel to Syria and even purchased a plane ticket for him 2 years ago. McCain is being held without bail pending his scheduled court hearing December 19th. To catch a terrorist, that's the aim of a new measure signed by Governor Jerry Brown. The state's Office of Emergency Services will create a class that will teach people what specific things to look for when an attack is being planned. The idea came from finding that a neighbor of one of the San Bernardino terrorists had seen suspicious activity.
What I'm looking at with this bill is to try and make sure that there isn't racial profiling. Let's develop some telltale signs through law enforcement, through Office of Emergency Services, so that citizens know, hey, this is what you should be looking for.
The class, though, won't be available for at least 2 years. The California State Board of Education has approved sweeping changes to the way it measures school successes. But San Diego Assemblywoman Shirley Weber has a bill that would send them back to the drawing board. KPBS education reporter Megan Burke says Governor Jerry Brown is expected to weigh in on the bill less than a week after the new plan was approved.
To judge a school, parents used to have to consult something called an API score. It more or less said how well the school did on standardized tests. Under the new school ranking system, parents will access a dashboard full of additional measures like suspension rates, absenteeism, and how the school's English language learners are doing. Democratic Assemblywoman Shirley Weber is a proponent of this holistic approach, but worries the board moved too far away from academic performance. Her bill would give test scores more weight and put emphasis on closing the achievement gap. Governor Brown has until the end of the month to sign the bill. The state has until next school year to iron out its accountability measures. Megan Burks, KPBS News.
The San Diego City Council reconvened today after a month recess. One of the biggest things on the agenda for the next 3 months is a batch of community plan updates. Those are big sets of zoning and land use plans that dictate how certain neighborhoods develop over the next several decades. The plan for San Ysidro faced delays recently over concerns it wasn't doing enough to meet the greenhouse gas reduction goals of the city's climate action plan. California may be on its way to bring translation services to Medi-Cal patients who don't speak English. A bill awaiting the governor's signature would initiate a study on the need for medical interpretation and launch a pilot program to test recommendations. Zara Marcelin is the CEO of La Maestra Community Health Centers, which provides health services and medical interpretation for low-income communities, including City Heights. She says when providers don't have translators on staff, patients must turn to someone who's not qualified.
Sometimes even their children are doing the translation, or somebody who's not in a healthcare position.
Estimates show more than 70% of City Heights residents speak a language other than English at home. Governor Brown has until the end of this month to sign the measure. If you need cancer surgery, the best hospital is usually the one that does a lot of procedures because higher volumes reduce complications. But an online database shows a large number of hospitals still perform very few surgeries, and many just 1 or 2 a year. Cheryl Clark with KPBS partner iNewsSource joins us to explain in tonight's News and Numbers.
There's a lot of evidence that having cancer surgery at a hospital that does very few of those procedures increases your chance of complications. It can increase your chance of cancer coming back and your chance of dying. The evidence is so strong that 3 leading healthcare systems like Johns Hopkins now refer patients elsewhere if their hospitals don't meet thresholds. And this volume issue is catching on so fast that the California Healthcare Foundation has launched calqualitycare.org. The website uses state data that lets you look up surgery volumes for 11 cancer surgery types.
Now, Cheryl, you've studied the data. What does it show?
Well, I was surprised. Low volumes persist at many local hospitals, but at Scripps Encinitas in particular. It performed just 1 surgery for liver, pancreas, prostate, and stomach cancer in 2014. Now, experts agree that 1 or 2 surgeries a year is unacceptably low.
Are there any hospitals doing enough?
Well, UCSD Health System's 2 hospitals met thresholds in all but 1 type of cancer surgery. You can check out all of the volume data in our story today at iNewsSource.org. I'm Cheryl Clark for iNewsSource.
The drug company Mylan is trying to tamp down on the wave of criticism that its life-saving EpiPen is unaffordable. KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg says the EpiPen is not the only product of its kind on the market. Is the only product, rather, of its kind on the market.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Injection complete.
The EpiPen is an auto-injector filled with ephedrine. It can stop a severe allergic reaction in its tracks. EpiPens are sold only in pairs. The retail price is around $600. In response to public pressure, Mylan now says it will offer discount coupons for consumers who face high out-of-pocket costs for the drug. Dr. Susan Laubach directs the allergy clinic at Rady Children's Hospital. She says the high cost of EpiPens is just a symptom of a bigger problem.
For my patients with asthma, we run into the same problem with their maintenance medications costing $300 a month for many inhalers. There are many brands that don't have a generic option.
Of course, EpiPens aren't the only prescription drug that consumers complain is too expensive. There's an anti-psoriasis drug that costs thousands of dollars per injection, or a medication that can cure hepatitis C that retails for $1,000 per pill. Dr. Laubach says it's a pervasive issue.
Insurance companies are covering less and less and putting more of the burden on patients, and the pharmaceutical companies are trying to make more and more of a profit.
The pharmaceutical industry says high prices are necessary for companies to recoup their research and development costs. Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
Hillary Clinton is not coming to California as planned this week after being diagnosed with pneumonia. The Democratic presidential nominee fell ill Sunday at a 9/11 ceremony in New York. She was scheduled to attend fundraisers in California today and tomorrow and to tape an appearance on the Ellen DeGeneres show. A spokeswoman for her campaign says she'll be teleconferencing in to at least one planned fundraiser. In an interview, her opponent, Donald Trump, says he hopes she gets well soon. California Governor Jerry Brown has awarded the Medal of Valor to 8 highway patrol and police officers. 6 of the officers are from San Bernardino and Redlands. They were first responders during the San Bernardino terror attacks last December.
Hero. I was surrounded by a group of guys that were heroes that day, and I just happened to get hurt. But I had these guys come up and try and get me out of the fight. No, there's a lot of bravery there that I saw, and I'm glad that I'm here.
A San Diego firefighter was also among the honorees. Alex Walbrett works out of the fire station in East Village. He was recognized for intervening in a life-threatening assault on a colleague. California's got a shortage of prison inmates to help fight wildfires. Inmates made up about 20% of fire crews on several major blazes last year, but efforts to reduce prison overcrowding means fewer inmates. So now the State Conservation Corps is stepping in to fill the gap. The CCC is now recruiting new workers. Their sales pitch is, quote, hard work, low pay, and miserable conditions. They're hoping this will attract about 150 people over the next year. Mild temperatures are expected in San Diego this week with cooler weather along the coast. Heather Waldman has that in tonight's forecast.
Well, the weather close to home is fairly quiet, but if we look just off to the south, a little bit of noise being made in the eastern Pacific. What you see there is the northern edge of Hurricane Orlene, a Category 1 storm earlier this afternoon. It's going to continue to move northward and will eventually provide an extra feed of a little bit of moisture, mainly into the desert southwest. But certainly something worth watching as we go through the next couple of days. Of course, we had some moisture from another tropical system last week. That is long gone, but there are a couple of showers out there across central Arizona into northern Nevada. Nothing along the California coast. It's been a nice, quiet afternoon so far and should be a very calm evening. But that marine layer is going to start to drift in a little bit earlier than usual, and it's going to thicken up, too. That could lead to actually a couple of showers, a little bit misty and murky tonight, even around the metro area. Temperatures will be staying in the middle 60s. Pretty much all along the coast, watching for some areas of drizzle. Certainly some poor visibility as the fog sets sets in from Oceanside to San Diego and down towards Chula Vista as well. We could even get a little bit of mist in some farther inland areas towards Poway. Ramona drops to 52 degrees tonight. 40s in Mount Laguna. Will be at 60 tonight in Borrego Springs and around 67 degrees for you in Mecca. So again, the farther inland you go, the clearer the skies are going to stay. If you're closer to the water, expect it to be a little bit damp for tonight. May even want the jackets with that chill in the air too. Air is going to stay cooler than usual throughout the entire southwest on Tuesday. A little area of low pressure is going to be setting off a few showers across the Great Basin. Should be staying mainly dry in Los Angeles and San Diego. Again, that marine layer pretty deep on Tuesday morning. We'll start to see a little bit more sunshine later on Tuesday afternoon. The trend is going to be throughout this week to have warmer air move back in. And it's going to be a little bit drier too, so that marine layer not going to be quite as stubborn as we go through the middle and end of this coming week. But the next couple of mornings, certainly on the damp and gray side, especially at the coast. Mist in the morning on Tuesday. Clouds will break for some sunshine Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. High temperatures will be in the low 70s each afternoon. Lows will be in the middle to upper 50s for each night. Inland, again, a little bit of mist in the morning, especially areas that are just a little bit closer to the coast. Clouds breaking for sunshine each of the next several days, and temperatures will climb back into the lower 80s by the end of this week, into the start of the weekend. The mountains a little bit cool Tuesday, high 65 degrees. A lot of sunshine, though, so it'll feel a bit warmer. Temperatures will be starting off in the mid-30s, though, by this weekend, feeling a little bit more like late summer. Starting off at 50, finishing at 81 degrees on Saturday afternoon. Final stop takes us to the deserts. Highs in the low to mid-90s through the end of this week. There's those triple digits coming back for the day on Saturday. Heather Waldman, KPBS News.
Hawaii's high-quality seafood is sold with the promise that it is caught by local, hard-working fishermen. But AP reporter Haven Dailies says the people who usually haul the prize catch are almost always undocumented foreign workers, some confined to American boats for years at a time.
Every morning before dawn, thousands of pounds of fresh seafood are offloaded from boats at the largest auction of its kind in the country. At the Honolulu Fish Auction, the higher the quality of the catch, the better the price. With some ahi tuna going for as much as $1,000 each.
90, 80, 70, 60, 40, 30, 40, 10, 9.
Their catch ends up at restaurants and seafood counters across the country, from Whole Foods and Costco to Roy's.
So we're trying to deliver the best possible product. These guys risk their lives to go catch these fish.
But an AP investigation has found that the undocumented foreign fishermen who catch those fish earn very little money and are confined to their American-owned boats for years at a time. While not all boats suffer from poor conditions, AP found instances of human trafficking, active tuberculosis, and low food supplies.
Most of the fish caught and sold in Hawaii is done by the use of exploiting migrant workers in what looks to be a human trafficking scheme that's legitimized by our own laws.
About 700 men work in this unique U.S. fleet without visas. A federal loophole allows undocumented fishermen to work on the Hawaii fleet as long as they remain confined to their boats. They have no wage protection and little legal recourse. Some only make 70 cents an hour, working up to 22 hours a day. Most come from impoverished Southeast Asian and Pacific nations like these fishermen from Indonesia.
The worst one was the last boat I was in because we didn't take a bath for 1 week, and it was really difficult to get time to go to the toilet.
Even when the boats are in port in Hawaii, the men are not permitted to go ashore. Instead, captains are required to keep their passports with approval from federal agents. These Indonesian men escaped when their boat docked in San Francisco and were granted visas designated specifically for victims of human trafficking.
Merasa kurang dimanusiakan.
So I felt that I was not human.
They chose not to show their faces, but through an interpreter, claimed their wages were not only unfair, but that the work was unsafe.
I have seen a lot of accidents amongst friends.
Yang nggak ada satupun dibawa ke rumah sakit atau ke dokter.
And the captain did not bring any of them to the doctor.
Kemungkinan saya akan meninggal.
Because if I keep on staying in that boat, I think I will die.
U.S. Customs and Border Protection does periodically inspect the fishing boats when docked in U.S. ports.
Launch the boat.
And the U.S. Coast Guard routinely boards the vessels at sea.
I personally ask the crew for their welfare and if they're being treated correctly, they're getting paid.
While the agencies can make sure the fishermen are getting paid something, they have no authority over the amount paid. This fisherman says he nearly died earlier this year when his boat sank off the coast of Hawaii. Others have been killed, falling overboard, or in knife fights.
Because we want to make a living for our family, children, and our future. So we have to face it.
A spokesperson for the National Fisheries Institute, which represents about 75% of the U.S. seafood industry, told the AP mistreatment of workers and failure to provide for basic safety and hygiene is unacceptable. And, regardless of workplace exemptions, is illegal. Costco said it was investigating the issue. Whole Foods said only 1% of their seafood comes from Hawaii, and that they've been assured boat crews are well paid with bonuses and health insurance. Roy's didn't respond to a request for comment. Hawaii lawmakers have attempted to pass federal legislation to allow foreign fishing crews to enter the country on temporary visas. But so far, those efforts have been unsuccessful. Haven Daily, Associated Press, Honolulu.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next NewsHour, we kick off a special week-long series on the future of higher education called Rethinking College. That's Monday on the PBS NewsHour.
Thousands of schools across the country are using the game Minecraft to engage students of all ages in topics ranging from career readiness to archaeology. In tonight's SciTech report, Pete Weitzner shows us how virtual gaming transforms the classroom experience.
This is a teacher training course for the video game Minecraft. It's an open world game, which means there are no specific goals for the player to accomplish. Instead, the gamer uses creativity to explore and build things in this 3D space. Educators have latched onto the game to spark creativity and develop programming skills.
The 21st century skills and all what kids could use in their future careers. The spectrum of things is so massive that we can't expect schools to be able to teach all of that. So how can we give examples to teachers and students that sparks their curiosity, and when they go back home, they carry on where they left at school.
Koivisto's company started supporting Minecraft EDU just a few years ago. Now they have almost 6,000 schools engaged in the US, Europe, and Australia.
The spectrum of different uses is massive. We have heard examples from kindergarten to career centers across all the subjects. I don't really know what they are doing with the game in career centers, but I would really love to visit one and see.
One of those users is this archaeology and art history class at Chapman University. They're creating an entire Greek city using Minecraft. Professor Justin Walsh says the idea to teach with Minecraft just clicked.
It was a kind of eureka moment. What happened was that I was trying to think of a better way to have students do a project in this class. I thought, I can really engage the students, give them an active learning opportunity by having them play this game, but also applying the principles of Greek urban planning in a really important way, like what they're learning on a regular basis in class. They can apply that knowledge using Minecraft.
At first, Walsh's students didn't exactly share his enthusiasm.
I was actually extremely scared. I'm not very good with computer games or video games or anything like that, so it actually, thankfully, was fun once I got into it.
I think once I got over the fear and I figured out how to plant an entire forest of flowers around my house, I was like, okay, we can work with this. It'll be fun. You can mess with things a lot more than we thought we would be able to, given that we're working with 1 meter cubes.
Walsh says the immersive experience of technology enhances the learning process more than any lecture ever could.
I think that interaction or interactivity is really the difference. We actually can just have a virtual space, a sandbox, if you will, for them to have success and to make mistakes. And actually both of those things are great.
I think it's a lot more engaging, it's a lot more immersive, and I think it just lets you have a much more hands-on approach to the material that you're also learning in other, lectures and readings and discussions.
Back at the training, Koivisto says that kind of student-teacher success is what kept them going when they first began working with Minecraft EDU.
When we started getting emails and Skype calls from teachers that were like, this is like really changing how I teach, that sort of kept us going, although we were really making no money out of the company and so on. So that, and that has been going on so far, and I think that's the best evidence for us that we are doing something good.
You can see more stories like that one on SciTech Now, Sundays at 5:30 right here on KPBS. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. You've probably heard campaign ads about Proposition 55 to extend an income tax on the wealthy. Supporters say it would prevent a $4 billion budget cut for schools. PolitiFact checks out the numbers on Morning Edition. And later on Midday Edition, the U.S. spends more than $600 billion a year on defense. That's a larger share of its gross domestic product than any other NATO member. We'll hear about a new PBS documentary, American Empire. It asks why we volunteer when others don't. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.